Hey, today is 2.3 multiplication and division of inequalities. And all this stuff on page 40 of your student journal kind of summarize everything we're going to go through today. If you'd like to look back at it later and make some notes, that would be definitely fine. But I'm going to work through this using some other pages. Okay? What's up, man? Okay, just set it right there. I'll take care of it. Thank you. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at our core concepts. This is the same thing as your student journal here, but core concepts. Multiplying and dividing each side of an inequality by the same number produces an equivalent inequality. Okay? So there's some different rules that we have to follow here. And the way I want to kind of demonstrate those is, let's just pick some values. So like 3 is greater than 1. Everyone agrees, right? Okay, so 3 is greater than 1. Now we're going to take and we're going to add some other values to that. So when I add a value to each side, I end up with 4 is now greater than 2. It's still true, correct? Okay, well if I go ahead and subtract an amount from each side. Let's say I take away 7. Actually, let's take away 6. Okay, let me keep it a nice even number. Okay, 4 minus 6 is negative 2. Negative 2 is greater than negative 4. Very true? Okay, everyone agrees. All right, so let's say I multiply that. Let's say I multiply it by 3. Okay, that gives me negative 6 is greater than negative 12. Still true? Negative 6 bigger than negative 12? Yes, it is. Okay, so let's go ahead and now divide that. Divide it by, I don't know, 2. Okay? Now I divide it by 2. I end up with negative 3 is greater than negative 6. Still true? Okay, so we've shown that we can add, subtract, multiply, and divide, and the inequality symbol stays the same the whole way through. Okay. Now, if I take my negative 3 and my negative 6, and I, let's say, multiply it by, so I'm going to put them in parentheses, I'm going to multiply it by negative 4. What's negative 3 times negative 4? It's positive 12. What's negative 6 times negative 4? Okay. Is 12 greater than 24? No. So you have to flip that sign over to make it a true statement. So here, when I multiplied by what type of number? Variable. Yeah, when I multiplied by a negative number, it caused me to flip my sign. Multiply by a negative, you got to flip it. Okay? Let's go ahead and divide it. Let's try dividing by negative. If I divide each side by negative 4, or we already did 4 there, let's go 6. Negative 6. 12 divided by negative 6 is negative 2. And 24 divided by negative 6, negative 4. Is negative 2 less than negative 4? No, it's not. So you've got to flip it over again. Okay? Caused me to flip it this time was if I divide by a negative. If I divide by a negative, I have to flip it. So if I multiply or divide by a negative number, that sign must flip today. Well, always, but that will be something we go through today. Okay? All right, so that's kind of one of those major rules there. Okay, any questions there? All right. So let's go ahead and try some of these. I want you to try numbers 1 through 4 there. Solve the inequality, graph the solution. Okay. Hey, can I get your attention back up here? Let's go ahead and we're going to multiply both sides by 7. And when I multiply this side by 7, these 7's cancel, I'm left with n. I multiply negative 1 by 7, I get negative 7. Now, does my sign change? No. I didn't multiply by a negative. I did not move a negative number across by using multiplication or division. Therefore, the sign does not change. It stays the same. Then make sure you graph it, right? We're at 0. We're at negative 7. It's a open or close. Closed, and we shade. Okay? This guy right here. How do we get rid of the 1/5? Yeah, he times it by 5. 1/5 of 5 is 1, W. And 5 times negative 6.4. Well, 5 times negative 6, negative 30, so it's close to negative 30. It is negative 32. All right. That's fine as long as it's a terminating decimal. It works out. I'm going to flip this around so I can look at it like that. So then it tells me negative 32, closed, and it shades that way. Yeah, man. Good? Any questions? Okay, this guy, divide by 4. 1BB, 9. 0, 9er. Close circle. Shading. What's that? Why don't you both go outside? That'd be good. Thanks. We got Q. Negative 18 divided by 1.5. Uh-oh. We don't know. Yeah. Negative 12. How come no one else had that? Oh. Q. We got negative 12. 0. Negative 12. Open. Okay. How many have all of those? Okay, it should not be anything majorly new there. We didn't have to flip signs on that one, right?
I bet you're going to give us some now that we have to flip.
Maybe we'll try that. All right, let's try these then.
Wow.
Okay.
How my prediction came true.
Go through 5 real quick. 5, do we flip the sign? Yes, we're multiplying by negative 4 on both sides. Therefore, we have to flip the sign. Now, when we multiply by negative, I can put parentheses, so there's a lot of parentheses hanging there. These cancel. I'm left with P, and we get negative 28, and then since we multiply by negative 4, we flip it over. Okay? Tell your neighbor how you did on it. Get it right? Okay, who got it right? Just checking there. I'm going to assume you know how to graph them. It says graph them, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. Okay? All right. Number 6. Okay, do we flip the sign?
No.
Yeah, we're multiplying by negative 5. Flip it over. Okay? That ends up giving us, those canceling, X and 25. Sign goes that way. How many got it correct? Good? Didn't flip the sign. Got to flip it. Multiplying by the negative.
Are there 2 steps to number 7?
Number 7, depends how you do it. So, first thing I do on number 7, I would actually attach this negative, okay, to the numeric value and attach the z somewhere else. Or, okay, so you could write it like this. You could attach the negative down on the bottom with the number. And you could put the z up on top. That's one way. You can write it like that. The other thing you could do is you could think of this as just negative 1/10, and your z is kind of hanging out there. And to get rid of negative 1/10, you multiply by negative 10. So if I multiply this side by negative 10, then on this side, I'd also have to multiply by that same negative 10. Okay, so that these pieces cancel. If I have 10 1/10, that's 10. And then this gives me negative 10. The sign flips because we multiplied by a negative. And then if you want to rewrite it, you could call it z is greater than or equal to negative 10. Cool? All right. Okay, tell your neighbor on the bottom three which ones you're going to have to flip the sign on. Okay, do I have to flip the sign here? Yes, dividing by negative 9. Do I have to, so the sign's going to flip. M, negative 7. Going to have to flip it here. Yeah, dividing by negative 2. R is 11. Going to have to flip it here. Logan.
When do we know when to add or subtract? Oh, wait, when it's subtracted.
Yeah, so you know you're not adding or subtracting here because between the negative 2 and the variable there's nothing. Okay, yeah, there's the multiplication. So that tells us we're dividing. Good question.
How come you don't flip the sign when we're subtracting or adding?
That's what we were talking about at the beginning when we went through that whole process of adding and subtracting. Yeah. Okay, do we flip the sign on this one? It's a little different looking, but we're still dividing by a negative, so the answer is yes. Okay. How many 4/10 are there? You don't know? 3? 30. Yes. I was going to say 30. Okay. Any questions on them? It's fun stuff, dude.
It is fun stuff.
All right, last ones. Woohoo! The amazing world of story.
No.
Oh, yes. Give it a go. I've moved it a long time, though. I think so. Yeah, the bus. Yeah.
I didn't know a school bus had.
All right, number 11. You have at most $3.65 to make copies. Each copy costs 25 cents. Write and solve an inequality that represents the number of copies you can make. All right, Vincent, what do you got? 14? Like what inequality? No, that's the answer, right? That's what you got as an answer, okay? So, like, what's your inequality? Okay, so you got 365 like that. You put 14 right here? You didn't do it that way? So how'd you do it? Times 14 and got $3.50? Okay. So you can't go more, you can do another one because it costs you another quarter. Okay. So how can I write this in an equation? X? Oh, good. You would use X. Yeah. Nice. All right. 0.25 times X, X meaning the number of copies, not X, okay, is equal to 3, or not equal to. It has to actually be, like, we can't exceed that amount. So this has to be less than or equal to 365. So when we divide by it, we get, divide by 0.25 on both sides. What do we end up with? 14.6. Okay? Good. So as Vincent's pointing out, hey, I can only make 14 copies. Okay, we can't make 6/10 of a copy. You can't like, hey, stop right there in the middle. We're going to be done with it. Okay. All right. So our inequality is we can make 14.6 or fewer copies. Or 14 or fewer. Okay? Don't understand how we figure the equation out? Okay, so this is a rate. You're being charged per copy. So we're saying, like if you add one copy, 25 times 1, 25 times 2 would be 2 copies, 25 times 3. So we're saying 25 times x tells us how many copies. That's going to be our total cost. And our cost cannot exceed the amount we have. So we can't let this cost get bigger than that. That's how we're writing that inequality. Hey, number 12, the maximum speed limit for a school bus is 55 miles an hour. Write and solve an inequality represents the number of hours it takes to travel 165 miles. So, total miles. What do we want our total miles to equal?
55.
We want it to equal 165. How do we calculate our total miles?
Well, it tells you.
Tells you?
It tells you your total miles, 165 miles.
No, that's what we don't want to exceed. Or that's what we want it to, hold on. That's what we want to total, that's what we want to travel. We haven't actually traveled that much yet. That's our goal. So Hunter, how could I figure out how many miles I've traveled in 1 hour? Or Gunner, sorry. Okay, so you're like dividing right now. So in 1 hour, how many miles do I travel? 55. So in 1 hour, I go 55 miles. 2 hours, how many miles? 110. Okay, 3 hours, how many? 165. So we can make a table. But how would I like 55 times 1 gives me 55. 55 times 2 gives me 110. 55 times 3. So if we call this h, we're multiplying h by what? 55. So our total miles is equal to 55h. We want it to be, do we want it to be equal to 165, greater than, less than, or what? So writing to solve an inequality, meaning it can't be equal. But we want to travel 165. So if we go 150 miles, are we okay? No, you haven't won 165. It's like your PE teacher saying, hey, run 4 laps. You run 3, you're like, am I good? Like, no, dude, you got to run 4.
55h is less than or equal to 165.
Okay, so do our total miles need to be greater than 165 or less than? They have to be greater than. Could they be equal to?
Yeah.
Yeah. And we've already solved it. Divide by 55 on both sides, and you get h has to be greater than or equal to 3. Because if we go for 2 hours, right? If our hours are less than 3, then it doesn't work out. We don't go 165. Yep. Jonathan?
It doesn't say that it's going 55, it says that it can go 55.
Oh, it doesn't? The maximum speed limit. Well, yeah, you're right. So technically it's a flawed problem.
What about like traffic? And
Good thing we already did it though.
It's 5.5.
Factoring in traffic would be too much work.
Very good.
Much work.
Hey, your assignment.
figure out where you're going. Yeah.
Let me get that out to you. You guys can look at it in awe. There it is.
Epic music clip.